Welcome. Burning Tree Program Spotlight. My name is Eric Button. I do family support work for us, and I am a business development representative for Burning Tree Programs. Burning Tree started in 1999 with one man's vision. David Elliott created Burning Tree Ranch outside of Dallas and Kaufman. Burning Tree Ranch is a long-term drug and alcohol treatment center for the chronic relapse in man or woman. Average length of stay is anywhere from 8 to 14 months. And we have a year of what we call transitions. It's how they implement what their long-term experience, put it into practical application. In 2004, David Elliott created Burning Tree Lodge. It is now branded as Renewal Lodge by Burning Tree. It is an in-network insurance provider, clinically advanced spiritual approach to the 12 steps, 30, 60-day programming. Earlier this year, David Elliott reopened Awakenings Hill Country with Jessica and Josh Slay. Awakenings Hill Country is a women's substance use disorder treatment center, also an in-network provider. They have a 12-step curriculum with a trauma-informed focus. And then where David Elliott found his path of freedom in Tucson, Arizona, he created Burning Tree West, which is a young adult program with a collegiate track. And it also has the availability of providing some sober living in beds for men and women there in the Tucson area. So without any further delay, very honored to bring on Carey Davidson. Carey Davidson is a leader in the intervention profession in the field of addiction treatment and recovery. And Carey is the founder of Intervention ASAP. Welcome to Spotlight, Carey. How are you?
Mr. Button, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
Fantastic. When I found out you were coming on the show, and I thought, you know what, I haven't really visited a lot with you. I've always known of you, and I want you to know that I've always enjoyed watching you travel around the country on social media and seeing you go to jails or courthouses, and you post up on social media, and I know that someone is getting help on getting onto a path of freedom. So I want you to know that I really enjoy seeing you do that.
Well, thank you for saying that. You know, a lot of people get a jump start into their own recovery with a nudge from the judge. And I'm a big believer that if I can help facilitate some sort of alternative sentencing rather than having someone go to jail for struggling with addiction issues, I mean, my premise is people aren't bad. Alcoholics and addicts aren't bad people. We're trying to get good, but we're sick people that need help and need some course correction. And so, and you know,
well, I know my personal path, Carey, really launched me into freedom and in recovery was from my attorney and the legal system that nudged me into this process. So how did you decide that you wanted to become an interventionist? Tell us.
Well,
I think we have a moment where hello? It's buffeting. So Intervention ASAP, I would assume, stands for as soon as possible. And I know Carey's been an industry leader for, I think, as long as I've been in the field. I've almost been, I've been around 14 years. And I know Carey's based out of the Phoenix area. So we must be having some difficulties with the internet. I know our newest team member at Burning Tree, Jeff Corbett. Jeff Corbett introduced us to Brink. Hey, there you are.
I don't know what happened.
It's all right. It's modern technology
At its finest. And, you know, car's only as good as its driver, and my driver on the technology highway is not real. It's subpar. Sorry about that.
You're all right. So I was wondering, Carey, how'd you know that you wanted to become an interventionist?
Well, you know, it's personal for me, and my personal experience led to a profession. It took me a couple tries to get sustainable recovery. I am a person in my own long-term recovery, and my family tried to do an intervention on me. And the person that tried to intervene on me, the only tool that person had was a hammer, and tried to beat me into submission to get help. And that just didn't work for me. And I BS'd my way through it and said I'd go to get treatment after ski season was over, because there's only 3 weeks left, you know, in priorities. And so I didn't go from the intervention to treatment, and went on to hit a bottom beyond my wildest dreams, losing everything. And I was about a year into my recovery, and I kind of had this epiphany that, you know, had it been a properly orchestrated intervention, I probably wouldn't have had to hit the bottom that I went to. What I know now is that a properly orchestrated intervention is raising the bottom to the moment. So I start researching interventions, and this is 15 years ago. Gosh, time flies. I didn't have hair then either, Eric, so some things haven't changed. But I started researching interventions and realized, you know what? Anybody can print up a card and call themselves an interventionist.
Right.
15, you know, now there's a bunch of weekend trainings and things that people can go 2 days and call themselves, which, you know, whatever. But I have my own thoughts around that. So I self-taught on interventions and started marketing myself as an interventionist, and went out there and did it.
Right.
So that's what got me started in the field. But so I started doing it. Then I realized, you know what? I got people's lives in my hand. I have a great personal recovery program, but you know what? My experience, strength, and hope does not match everybody's experience. And I started getting into some heavy mental health intervention works, and I realized I had family relationships that will be impacted for the rest of their lives. So I said, time out. I went back to school, got my master's in counseling, addiction studies, and came back into the field as with a master's degree in therapist, doing interventions, not so much based on my personal experience, but based upon education and evidence-based theories.
So you alluded to in the very beginning, you told me that basically it was a hammer, and they wanted to, for no pun intended, hit you into treatment, right?
Yeah.
And that's a traumatic experience in itself, right?
Yeah, you know, a lot of the misconceptions out there on interventions is that we're going to come in and tough love you. If you can go get help, or else what's going to happen. And what I've learned, you know, so it's kind of like, you know, here's we're going to, either you go and we're going to do and we'll help you, or you're on your own and you're out on the street. And, you know, I've evolved over the years into thinking, you know, that if we're kind of starting to realize that trauma has a role in people's substance abuse. And one of the things I don't want to do is create more trauma, and jumping and surprising someone and tell them we're going to, you know, your life is going to be, we're going to make it so difficult and shaming and everything. It doesn't need to be that way.
Right.
I believe we're all hurting, and we got to figure out what is going to motivate someone from a position of love.
Explain to us you use the verbiage raising the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
Expand on that for us, would you?
Sure. You know, here's what I've learned personally. You hit bottom when you quit digging. You know, what's it going to take for someone to quit digging? And usually it's going to see that there's a way out of the hole. And you know, the light at the end of the tunnel doesn't have to be a train. So in regards to raising the bottom, it's about, you know, everybody talks about enabling and codependency, and you know, enabling is love, but unfortunately when a person is under the influence or in the grips of an addiction, people that love and care for somebody are actually helping the addiction to continue on. So
Right.
raising the bottom is taking control back of the situation and talking about things in new and different ways, so that you have it's the only control you'll have of a completely out of control situation. So you raise it up to now.
I like the way you put that. That's I know in my own path, finding recovery, didn't really take too well to being told what to do, but I really was warm to the ideas of being invited to do.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about the process of you connecting with the addict alcoholic's family.
Well, the premise under which I work is that the addict alcoholic's family knows that person. I know mental health and addiction issues. If we can combine our knowledge, we're going to be able to help. So it's kind of like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Everybody on the family side has pieces of the puzzle. I've got some ideas on what the picture can look like to get help. If we can combine our knowledge, we're going to be able to help and do it in a pulling fashion rather than a pushing and shoving fashion.
Right. Right.
Because you know, most families aren't prepared for they're hurt, they're angry, they're scared, and it just doesn't make sense, you know. And so if I can help people understand what it is we're dealing with, it's kind of a teach a man to fish versus give him a fish, you know.
Right.
It's the predictability that makes it treatable.
Yeah.
You know.
So a family reaches out to you and they say, Carey, we need help with our son or daughter. Walk us through your process. And I know each family dynamic is a little bit different and everything, but give us a scenario of your process.
Okay. Well, the first, you know, it's always interesting to me, and I just got to point this out, is that about 97% of the people I work with get help. So that's pretty good. But on the flip side of that coin, about 1 in 10 families that I talk to moves forward with the intervention process. Kind of just a fun little factoid to, you know, wrap your head around.
Yes.
So the process is, and I'm going to do kind of a overview, satellite view, because it can take, as you said, many different twists and turns and unique situations. But the initial part of the process is information gathering. You know, getting history, getting perspectives of what's going on. That will determine the approach that we're going to take in motivating what I call the IP, which is identified patient, because I look at the whole family system. I'm systemic in my approach as the patient, not just one person. You know, it's real, because it's insane to think that you can pluck somebody out of a system, put them back into the same system, and expect there to be lasting change. Everybody's got to change. And identified patients love hearing that, because it's not all about them all of a sudden. So
Right.
the first step is information gathering. Second step is usually starting to plan and prepare. And we have worksheets and paperwork that is thought provoking that we get families and loved ones to do. Then I always encourage to gather their strength in numbers, gather people that care about the identified patient, as if he had terminal brain cancer and 2 days to live. Who's going to come in and love on him? That's who we want to bring together for an intervention. It's not about airing dirty laundry. It's not about, telling them that they're wrong and broken. It's about, we love you. We care about you.
That's bringing the top up.
Yeah. That's raising it
right there. Bringing the bottom up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And putting everyone on a more, level playing field of the people that care about someone, saying, we haven't done everything right either. Hey, we didn't know. A lot of people look at addiction as a moral failing. And I happen to agree with the American Medical Association, I don't know, a little group, and when they say it's a disease.
Yes.
And it's that disease that makes it treatable. But, if someone had diabetes, you wouldn't give them cake all day. You'd learn about how to eat with them and enjoy life with them and manage the diabetes.
Right.
And that's what families really need to know. And most often it's new information to them. They don't.
So as you're the planning stage and the implementation, I'm sure in the very beginning, the planning stage is what's going to be the best place for this particular client. What all factors do you weigh in figuring out where they're going to receive treatment at?
Right. Excellent point. I mean, the reality is I do not believe in a one size fits all sausage factory. Part of the from the second we're gathering information, and we basically do a biosocial assessment through concerned others' eyes, not with the person initially.
Right.
Usually the person says, I don't have a problem. They don't want to talk to anybody. So we're looking at what is going to be the best treatment match for this person based upon their history and biosocial, socioeconomics, education level, age, family situation, lifestyle. I mean, it doesn't, if someone is 65 years old, it doesn't make sense to put that, and sitting around on the couch all day drinking. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put them with a bunch of 18-year-olds out in the mountains
right.
doing nomadic wilderness treatment.
Right.
But, our hope is if someone has trauma, a lot of trauma, find a place that treats that trauma. If it's a female that has had, sexual abuse and sexual trauma, it doesn't make sense to me to put them around a bunch of guys. Let's find a place that is gender specific, that someone can feel safe so they can start that healing process, and not feel like they're an outcast. I mean, everyone feels that they're an outcast, usually with an addiction, but throw in, gender specific separation and things like that. Someone can feel safe and then they can start healing. So yeah, picking out a treatment center is huge.
Yeah. And then it's what I've grown to realize is the best outcomes for an addict alcoholic that needs to be physically separated from the ability to continue to feed the disease is having a well thought out, well executed intervention, great treatment placement, and then after treatment, what goes on? Are you involved in that piece too?
Yes. The whole process usually with me, intervention accumulates with a face-to-face day planning, prep, and education intensive with everybody except the addict alcoholic. Then usually the next day we meet with the addict alcoholic. And there's basically only two ways to start it off. One is to invite someone. The other is to surprise, but it's not your birthday. I prefer to invite people rather than having the surprise, because that can create more trauma. But sometimes, given situations, you have to go surprise route.
Right.
but that's determined on the history and information. Once someone is in a safe environment, then the next step is, they're in the safe, protective cocoon bubble of treatment.
Right.
How are we going to transition back into the real world? And that's, that's where we come in and help with and coordinate with the people that are working, not only with the addict alcoholic, but with the family. And what is that transition back into life going to look like? And, quite honestly, the best outcomes are those that have supportive transition.
So tell us what all is under the umbrella of Intervention ASAP, Carey Davidson, what all services do you guys provide?
We provide therapeutic consulting. We don't provide actual, therapy via Zoom or anything, but we provide resourcing and guidance and treatment planning and continuing care planning for patients and their families. We are completely independent, so we do not have any affiliation with or financial relationships with any treatment provider. There's a whole dark underbelly to the treatment world. A lot of people know about that, but I've kept it very clean in that finding the best match for the person is the most important thing. So the therapeutic consulting, then we do the intervention, and then we'll do case management. Somehow or another, I seem to be doing a lot more what I call true co-occurring disorders, which is mental health. So I'm doing myself and my clinical director named Lisa Lovelace, who's amazing. We're doing a lot of heavy psychiatric therapeutic consulting and intervention as well. So there's times that we'll work with families that actually don't have substance abuse, but have other maladaptive coping mechanisms in life that simply aren't working in helping guide everyone to getting help. So it's a long-winded answer. Sorry for that.
I mean, that's it. You're not just that. It's not just, let's intervene on them and get them into treatment, then you're done. There's a whole process, and that's what I wanted to extrapolate on. Great outcomes when you have an intervention, great treatment placement, great discharge planning, and then the case management to make sure that everybody on the team is following through with the prescription or the playbook for a successful client engaging in freedom. And that's what recovery offers us all, is freedom.
Absolutely.
So I am very honored, Carey, that you took the time. I'm very honored that Jeff Corbett connected us and connected you to be on Burning Tree Program Spotlight. And I, along with our organization, are very grateful for your leadership in this field.
Well, thank you. And it's fun to watch you grow. And you know what? It's not just about me. You're a leader too, Eric. It's about all of us coming together and speaking the truth boldly. And I will say this, I couldn't do it without my team headed by Lisa Lovelace.
Yeah.
She is just amazing. And, congratulations on Jeff joining your team as well.
We're very blessed.
He's a pretty solid man on his own standing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. Anytime, anything I can do, don't ever be shy.
All right, Carey. Great talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Carey Davidson, very credentialed, very ethical interventionist in the field of helping families navigate the disease of addiction and mental illness. Intervention ASAP. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing him on and being on Spotlight. Burning Tree Programs is a family-owned, ethical treatment provider. We've been around since 1999. David Elliott is our founder. He created the initial program called Burning Tree Ranch. It is in Kaufman, Texas, outside of Dallas. It is a long-term residential environment for men and women who are chronic relapsers. Average length of stay is anywhere from 8 to 14 months of residential with a year of what we call transitions. In 2004, David Elliott created Burning Tree Lodge. About a year ago, he brought on a gentleman named Peter Pirano. He's our chief operating officer, and Peter rebranded the lodge, and it's now Renewal Lodge by Burning Tree. It is a clinically advanced mindfulness approach to the 12 steps. It is an insurance in-network provider for a lot of, or just about all, national branded insurance providers. Earlier this year, David Elliott teamed up with Peter, Jessica Slay, and Josh Slay, and they reopened Awakenings Hill Country, which, like Carey was talking about, gender specific for women. It is a women's helping women 12-step trauma focused treatment center that's an in-network provider to help families in Fredericksburg, Texas. And our owner and founder, David Elliott, found his path of freedom in Tucson, Arizona. We have a program out there that Jeff Corbin and Alexis Spalla work at, and Josh New, and it's called Burning Tree West. Burning Tree West is a young adult program with a collegiate track, and it also has the availability to provide some sober living environment beds for men and women there in the Tucson area. So we're very honored to have you watch Burning Tree Program Spotlight. Have a great evening.